Morning, Jesse. How's things? Good? Good. Well, welcome to our utility shed, or the junk shed if you want to be a bit more accurate. It's where we keep our rabbits. At the moment we're keeping them in the cages that they came with. Some viewers of ours, their circumstances changed, they couldn't keep their rabbits, they reached out to us. They said, would you like to adopt some rabbits? It won't cost you a cent. I said, that would be fantastic. And they were very generous. They threw in the cages, the feeders, everything. So I brought the rabbits back, expecting Dad, wasn't I? Then I was expecting a child, so I was rushing around like crazy. So very quickly I just suspended the cages here for some wire at a nice working height, and below was nice and clear. There's no stand, no legs or anything. So collecting them manure and keeping things hygienic was very, very straightforward. Cage culture of rabbits is well, it's the mainstream way of keeping rabbits. It comes with so many benefits. It's very, very hygienic. It's very easy to keep things clean. It's very easy to collect the manure. You can keep rabbits separate from each other, you know, so disease vectors and things like that in large rabbitries. You don't get diseases sweeping through, wiping out your bunnies. Record keeping, you know, you can take a female out, go and visit the male. It happens quick. Bring her back. All of these different reasons. So I was happy to leave them on wire, so in cages, just for the time being while I waited to assemble some materials, have a bit of a think about things and get a bit of time up my sleeve. I've had my daughter now, so I'm a little bit freed up. So our bunnies, even though they were born into cage life, and I can't really say whether they're happy or not, but they're certainly healthy in here. One of the intangibles with bunny rabbits that is not met by cage culture is that rabbits are social animals. So by having in a cage, yes, you are avoiding that disease, but there's some natural expressions of behaviours that aren't met by having rabbits separated from each other. We think that because we're only having a very limited number of rabbits and we're able to maintain hygiene very, very easy and keep an eye on things, we'd like to go with the colony system, all right? So I want to get them out of the cage and onto the ground. So basically what we're going to have to do is make a mesh floor so they can't dig. We're going to do it in the shed. The shed's a perfect spot. This is the north wall, so the sun will sort of warm up this part. It's actually quite shaded, but this does get a little bit warm. So they can either come here for warmth or they can move, you know, south. they can cruise on down that way to get away from that. They're protected from the elements. They don't have, you know, harsh sunlight, and it's just an all-round good spot to be. So that's one of the jobs that I've got for this week. But one other thing, these rabbits, I have bred them, and they did have their kits. Okay, their little baby rabbits. They are all out in a movable tractor. So why don't we just go and have a look at that, and I'll get to starting making this colony tomorrow. I think there's other things I have to do today. So this is a very, very basic cage, 1-inch angle iron, made up a frame. I got this mesh for free from a friend. I got the wood for free from my sister, so we've done a bit of scavenging. I did pay for the core flute, but that's like $17 a sheet, so it's not too bad. And there is also some weld mesh in here that I did pay for, just to stop the rabbits from digging out. It doesn't cover the entire floor. It's only like 10 inches or 25 centimeters coming in from each side, so they can still get just on the grass. But if they try and dig out, they'll come to a corner. They don't have forward planning, rabbits. They can't just start back there and dig and out there to feed them. These guys haven't shown any sign of digging anyway, because what happens is I'll come and move them first thing in the morning, and I'll also move them first thing at night. So they don't really have time to tunnel, but I do want them onto fresh ground pretty regularly so they can self-help themselves to clover, and they're on this nice sun-cleansed, you know, pasture, so that keeps health problems down. As well as these rabbits look really happy. They can sort of skip around, jump, play with each other. There's a bit of room to move. So the modification I want to make for these, for this little cage, is I just want to make a shade cloth
I got a whole bunch of shade cloth for nothing. I want to make a shade cloth screen just around this end for you know, cold winds and things like that. The rabbits do like to come in here and sunbake, but an area where they can just get out of the wind, they can get out of the sun. Well, they're always out of the sun, but just get out of the elements in some degree. I just want to give them that there. So moving these rabbits is no big deal. I've got a bucket up here, water with tubes coming down, and there's little brass waterers that the rabbits help themselves to. That avoids having an open trough that they can spill or foul or anything like that. Keeps it quite clean. I do throw a little bit of vinegar in here each time I fill up the water. That's good for the rabbits, but it also keeps the algae down. These will eventually go a little bit green, but it helps to, I was only really able to get the clear stuff, but it does actually help to see if there's any blockage in there that needs to be cleared out. Fencing wire handles with a little bit of you know, irrigation pipe that was laying around going to waste. So that makes a nice handle that's quite smooth to hold. When I want to move them, the bucket and the handle go together. I've also got a stick here that I can use to just prop this open, and I can keep an eye on my little bunnies and just make sure that they're keeping pace with the movement and not getting trapped under there. They've already been moved, so I'm not going to move them too much further. Hi, how you doing? Pretty regular handling every day. I think that's fairly important with all of our animals, and the rabbits are no exception. If I give them a little pat every day, it just makes examination and just everything a lot better, and I just really enjoy patting rabbits, so that kind of helps. Off please. The feeder could not be simpler, so that's just a bit of PVC pipe. This was actually once used for a chicken waterer, but now it's had a whole bunch of slits cut in the bottom, and I've just opened these up. So we just fill that with pellets every 2 or 3 days. The slits at the bottom help drain dust off, which is a nice thing for rabbit pellets. So they get to just free choose that, because I do want them to put on weight as quickly as possible. In here as well, every couple of days, I'll just come and throw a bit of straw. Because that mesh is in there, it just means that that straw will sit on top of it, and the rabbits can use that as a little bit of bedding if they want. But to be honest, if it hasn't been raining, they all just sort of pile up in the middle, oftentimes just in a little rabbit pile, and go to sleep. But if it is a little bit damp, that wire around the corners and that straw, they're able to get up and dry their feet. That little escape artist having a look. We'll put this lid down. We'll go and get the shade cloth, and we'll just make that little modification. So we've got 3 metres between these uprights. I guess I'll take it 3 metres out. Give the rabbits about 9 square metres. That should, that should give us a bit of room for mums to raise litters and stuff like that in the future. We're never going to have a lot of rabbits here, so I think that's a pretty good size. They should be able to stretch their legs in that. So I guess the design brief for this one is to use all just found or recycled material. So quite basic, and I don't want to have anything too permanent. So it does need to be, be able to be removed fairly well. So no big wooden structures or anything like that. This is going to be a wire construction. Now, because this shed's set on the dirt floor, this back wall is, I can actually stick my finger under there, so I can't just leave that be. I actually do need to put mesh up here as well, otherwise the rabbits would quickly just whoop, be gone. So that's why I'm clearing this out. I need to run a wire between these two as part of putting a wire floor in. Well, it's a little bit quick and dirty, already starting with the crowbar without any bracing to keep it upright, but I'll just rough it. I will say one thing, when you're using a crowbar though, and I've learned this the hard way when I used to do demolition when I was much younger, is when that crowbar hits the ground, your hands don't want to be hanging onto it tightly. You just want to loosen your grip, and that's how you don't get blisters when your hands aren't necessarily like leather. People that hang onto it all the way to the end, that's when your skin gets rubbed off. But if you just loosen your grip and let the weight of the crowbar do the work, you'll come out of it and you won't have to wee on your hands at the end of the day. When we first got here, there was a whole bunch of eucalyptus trees around about, well, this round. And I cut a bunch of them, and I also skinned them and let them dry. So this is in a shed, it's not too bad, but this blue gum is fairly rot resistant anyway, so I'm going to use that as a diagonal bracing here. I'm going to make a floating brace. I'm not going to make a really heavy constructed one, but it'll just be enough that it'll, I'll set it down there actually, under halfway. I'll set it down there, so when I put some wire up here at 1.8 metres, 1800, and I pull on it, it'll have a bit of bracing there, and you know it'll support that post a bit, because then the wire that I'm pulling up there won't have all of this lever to work on. Okay, so I've just run one strand of wire around here. At the end I've just put it through 2 fencing staples, or U-nails if you like. Sometimes I'll go around the end of the post, but it does need a wooden pad on the end there to stop the wire from splitting up the log. This is a lightweight construction, so I've just gone a couple of U-nails. Up here, of course, I've done that. I did that notch, so that's, as I pull the wire, that will be forced more into there. I did stick a nail in there just to hold it while I'm mucking around here. So we'll just put some tension on this wire. And like I said, this is, I'm only making quite a light construction here, so I don't need to go too mad with this. Well, there we go. We didn't lose too much tension tying that style knot, so that was pretty good. So that looks okay. We've got a lot more stiffness now. So as we put a wire up here at 1.8 metres, 1800, you know, you can put a fair bit of tension on there. All that's going to happen is it's going to try and drive, because you've got this triangulation, you're just going to be trying to drive that post and that wire in that triangle down through the ground. But I put a brick there, so it's going to resist being driven into the ground. So this will take quite a bit of force, even though all the components in it are really quite skinny. So we're at the stage now where the braces are in. There's some a strip of wood up those metal posts that we can use later to just tack wire to, and I've tensioned 4 wires across the bottom here. So now I'm just going to put in the mesh floor before we do anything else. So now that the floor's in, I can do the sides, and then last up we'll address the front framework, because of course I need to put a door in. Another thing that happens on this place is we often get young relatives coming and visiting. And I really like them to have interactions with animals, and that includes our rabbits. So with this, I'll be able to open the door and they'll be able to just pop in there, and I won't have to worry about a rabbit escaping. But even more than that, they're at a young and impressionable age, and I want to show them where food comes from. So they can come here and they can see where pork, rabbit, chicken, eggs, all of that comes from. But the other thing that they see is that if you're eating animal foods, there's probably some people out there that would like to impress on them that that has to involve cruelty. Well, they can come here and just see a first-hand demonstration that that is not the case. You can be eating meat and animal products and still very much have the welfare of animals foremost in your mind. You can see why I put that top brace. There's an awful lot of leverage up here. It would have bent that pine post, so that's that nice little bit of support. You might think, well, why don't you put it up higher? If you put these diagonals up too high, what will actually happen is they'll lever lever posts up and out of the ground. So you need to have them less than halfway. Anyway, this is all looking pretty good. Looks fairly rabbit proof to me. You've noticed that when I finish that off, I snap my knots off instead of cutting it. So that means that these are, there's no sharp bits of wire. No one's going to get cut by those nice neat little knots. Everything's nicely rounded. Everything's neat and tidy. So bit of recycled pine. Look, you can still see the construction glue stuck on there. I just put it in. I didn't bother putting 45s in my uprights there because between these two end strainers, there's not going to be any racking. So I just did it the slack way, really. I guess if I was really quick and dirty, I could have nailed it together instead of screws. But anyway, I'll drive a few screws through there into the uprights. This is fairly parallel with this top plate. This top plate, I don't really need to do too much bracing. This is 2 pine pieces that have been nailed together sometime in the past before I got to them. I figured I'd just leave them like that and find a way to use them, so that day is here. Okay, well this looks all pretty good. It's not sand. So this is sawdust. The local pallet and bin manufacturer supplies big bags of his waste product for $25, and it's really great stuff. Quite fine, hardwood and pine mix, untreated, no chemicals in this. It's just naturally straight off the timber as it's being milled. Really good animal bedding because sawdust has, well, this dust has a very large surface area because it's so fine, so it's quite absorbent, but also sawdust has a very high carbon to nitrogen ratio, like 200 parts carbon or something like that to every bit of nitrogen. And that means it can soak up a lot of nitrogen. That means it can soak up a lot of rabbit wee. The poo's not a really big deal, but rabbit wee is kind of smelly and not so good. So this is our base layer. I will be throwing a scattering of straw on as well, and where I find out that the rabbits do their regular latrine, then that can get a bit more attention. I've got plenty of sawdust left over to top this off, even though I do want to use that to make to renovate our garden paths because everything's starting to grow in them now. So that's pretty good. That'll do. So just a very quickly whipped up door. Just some lap joints here. They're really easy to make with a circular saw, a chisel, and a plane. And also I just threw a little bit of wire in here that's just taking the load of that bottom corner up to this top corner, just to prevent this door from racking. But having lap joints here, that goes a fair way towards stopping this from racking and twisting anyway. I just happened to find a couple of little spring hinges which I was very happy about because having a self-closing door makes a lot of sense. Rabbits like to get out and about. Inwards opening is also pretty handy, so I just have to put a catch in there, so when I want to go in there and clean out the rabbits, I can just open this up totally out of the way against the back end there and shovel whatever I want out into a wheelbarrow on the way to the compost heap. Another way of tensioning wire is if you have a double run, which I put in here before, you can actually twist it, and as it shortens it puts a bit of tension on. This tension wire up the top has two jobs. So one of them is to so I can get clip the netting onto it. But the other is also just to give this additional support. Just the screws that are holding that in are in shear. So the weight of the door, not that there is really much, this is just an additional support. It takes all the load back to this nice upright which I buried rather than just screwed in. Anyway, you can get a bit of force like that. I'm going to be a little bit sneaky and just drive this in here to keep it. Pretty taut.
Well, this is all working out really, really well. This is a weekend well spent. A few hours each day over my weekend, and I couldn't be happier with the way it's turned out. What didn't turn out as planned is when I put the two adults down, I thought there might be a little bit of a ruckus, but no, they wanted to kill each other. So I had to put Jezebel back in her cage, and I've put her on the ground now. And Roxy is still free. She was the more passive rabbit in the mix. What I did then is I went and got all the junior bunnies. I went down to the tractor there, the movable cage, and I pulled them out and brought them up here. I figured, not being sexually mature, they shouldn't have too much of an issue getting to know Roxy, and that's been the case. Everyone's been getting on fairly well. Roxy at first was doing a few dominant displays, but she's really settled down. So now what we'll do, everyone's getting on pretty fine, except for Jezebel. She's still really aggressive. So what we'll do is we'll just leave her here. Everyone can sniff noses, and I'll give her a fortnight just to sort of ease into the groove. So I'm still going to have to come in and change her food and water, but at least she gets a little bit of social interaction, and hopefully she chills out, and I can just let her go. We've got these rabbits for food, but we will be selecting some of the females to go on and breed with. So that's all well and good. There will be a male in here somewhere that we also select to keep, and that is what's going to happen with that tractor, that movable cage. I always sort of had an idea that I'd like to do this, and that cage was to have the male separate. So when we want to breed our rabbits, I'll just take a female down, pop it in the cage, and that way we'll be able to control, the population size of the rabbits, and we'll also be able to just prevent unwanted inbreeding a little bit further down the line. Some people do keep a male in with their colony. I'm just not ready for the mayhem that would unleash. But everyone's getting on really, really well, so that's fine. You can see that the burrows that we made here, they've been well subscribed. The rabbits have been in and out of those. I tech screwed a bit of sheet iron there. Anyone that's seen rabbits on a property knows they love getting under sheet iron. So I've just secured that there so they can't knock it off, or no rabbits underneath it when it comes sliding off. There's all hay under there, and they can get into that. A feeder, water, everything's good. So I'm pretty happy with it all. I will say, when we got both of these female rabbits, we also had a male rabbit. That's why we've got all these little rabbits. I was not very vigilant when I was changing the food and water one day, and one thing about rabbit cages, it really pays not to have them open outwards, because I thought I'd close it and I hadn't. He was able to push it, jump down, and then our dog is part whippet. So of course she grabbed it, and I was pretty upset, but you can't really punish a whippet for going for a rabbit. That's sort of like what they're made for. So it was a bit of a sad thing, but what it means is we have to wait for one of these males to be mature before we breed, and that sort of fitted what we wanted anyway. I didn't want to breed the females over summer. I didn't want them to have that additional stress when it's quite hot here. So it's all going really well. Everyone's happy, everyone's settling in. They've got heaps of room to move. Everyone's just having a good time. Well, except for Jezebel, she's still trying to kill everyone, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to support our work, you can. You can just click that like button. You can hit the subscribe button if you want to get regular updates. You can leave a comment if you like, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, or even if you haven't. If you do want to support us further, we do have links in the description. You can come and join us on Patreon, or there's PayPal, or whatever. But in any case, I think that sort of wraps up the video, and hopefully we'll see you next week.